everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers podcast. I'm your host, Zero.exe, but you could call me Zero. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Soldier. How's it going, Soldier?
It's good, Zero. Happy to hear from you. I know it's been a while now.
Yeah, no kidding. We got to get more on top of this. Xenoblade just been sucking all the free time that I've had, but we're about to get back on this grind. A lot more gaming news coming out lately, I mentioned Xenoblade taking up most of my time, but I've had a chance to play a couple other video games here and there. Splatoon 3 is now out in the wild. We'll talk about my first impressions there, among other things. I did get to dip my toes back into Elden Ring for a little bit. Still waiting on DLC announcement for that, but it is what it is. How about you? What you been up to lately?
I've just been playing a crap ton of Destiny 2. Finally got into that game here toward the end of, I think it's season 18 that they're on right now, which,
Good lord.
yeah, there's a few more left, I believe, and there's a new DLC dropping next year, or wait, is it this year? I'm not sure. I am pretty new to it myself. I was more of a Destiny 1 player, but I do miss the legacy content of Destiny 2 not being completely accessible anymore. So I do feel bad for not like getting to experience some of those things. But yeah, the gameplay, the gun mechanics, it's as everyone says, it really is what brings me back. And I've got some friends that I've reconnected with and been playing with, and it's been a lot of fun. Most of them have been playing for years, so they're kind of carrying me through and teaching me things about raids, which I've never really tapped into. Some of them play PvP, so I've just been kind of doing that. On the single player side, I can't really say I've been playing anything consistently. I know last time I brought up Soul Hackers 2, but before we started recording, you were like, "There's an update coming out with quality of life things," and I mean, you saying that there's a dash that's going to be available for players, like, I'm going to be honest with you, that's something I've wanted since I started the game. Is like a run button. Like, come on, I got that in Gen 3 of Pokemon. Please give this to me. So yeah, that's I'll probably put that away. I'm still stuck. You brought up Elden Ring. I'm still stuck at that first area. Maybe you can hop in and help me out. If I think there's cross play with that, right?
No, there's not.
No,
Nope.
bad.
Yeah, you have to be on the same console. What are you playing it on right now? PlayStation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can still hop on with you and just like if you stream your gameplay, I can hop on and give you tips and stuff while you play because I've got at least 150 hours in Elden Ring right now. I still haven't beaten the final boss because I was busy exploring every nook and cranny in the game because it's fantastic. I might end up playing through it again on the Steam Deck just because it's nice to have it in a portable factor.
Oh yeah.
Be interesting on a different playthrough now that I've kind of seen everything and I'm used to the mechanics, so it should be a lot more smooth as I progress through the game. I don't know if that's going to take the magic out of it. I know exploring the world and experiencing it for the first time, like it's one of those games that when you experience it for the first time, it's just incredible, and it's going to be hard to live up to that magic again.
That's fair. Very Breath of the Wild-esque in that way, where you almost wish you could zap your memory away just to re-experience it.
Yes, exactly.
It's definitely on the list of games you wish you could, just blank slate, start over, and not know anything about. I mean, how cool would it be to be able to do that when the next Breath of the Wild comes out? So you played like both of them back to back. That would be like that would be amazing. I have a friend of mine. He comes to mind right now. I don't know if you ever listened to this, but he sucks at really sitting down and playing the game. Like he's only sunk in like what, less than 20 hours into Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, yeah, by the time two's been out for 5 years, you'll be done with one. That's probably what's gonna
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. You're like, oh, imagine going back through Breath of the Wild for the first time. Well, kind of going to get something like that once Tears of the Kingdom comes out, as it's subtitled. So we're not that far away. It's in May. It's October now, so we've only got about 7 months, little bit more than half a year to go until Breath of the Wild sequel is out, and it looks like they really stepped up the game. Like it's not just going to be a retread with the same map reused over again. You know, a lot of the new islands and everything. It's kind of like a blown up Skyward Sword with the way they're doing everything in the sky, and there's a lot more verticality to it this time around. So I can't wait to jump into that.
Yeah, I actually told my that same friend I was telling you about, because I think he and I know many other players probably feel this way too. Could feel a little overwhelmed at the style, like if it's
And it's a hard game too. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest games since the original Zelda on the NES. So I mean,
yeah, I
it's
agree.
tough. It's tough to crack, especially early game when you only have a handful of hearts, and two hits will kill you, and you have like, your only weapon is a twig and a leaf. Like
Yeah, you're really not wrong about everything you said. I remember feeling so small, not just because of the world and how big and everything being loaded up or anything. It was just the fact that my weapons broke, and that kind of broke my confidence like early on because I knew that like I had to rely on skill. So like the game kind of forces you to get
yeah,
good in a way where you have to like you choose whatever weapon you're comfortable with, and now maybe just stick with that until you get better with another one, and then find better equipment right along the way. But I don't know, this Tears of the Kingdom sequel seems to be taking a bit different of an approach. Like maybe it'll still have that open world aspect that you can explore to degrees that are like Breath of the Wild, but I imagine we're looking at maybe 6 almost traditional kinds of dungeons or something like that.
and I'm really curious what they're gonna do with the whole weapon durability thing. I know that's a hot button topic when it comes to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
Some think it really makes the game in terms of keeping it there, and it improves the experience because it forces you to learn the mechanics of the game and not just hoard the strongest weapons in the game endlessly until you steamroll everything. And of course, some think that
right.
it's a detriment because it's like it's not worth finding good weapons because they're going to break. So it's kind of a similar situation that Fire Emblem fans have with weapons having a set amount of uses before they break. So there's most Fire Emblem games have that where an iron sword has 30 uses before it breaks, and once it's gone, it's gone. You got to buy another one or get a new weapon. And there's certain Fire Emblem games where there is no weapon durability, and it just you can use that weapon endlessly, and it's balanced by like pros and cons from the weapon itself. So like Fire Emblem Echoes, which was a remake of Gaiden on the NES, that one has like a single equipable item, which can be a weapon, and it doesn't reduce its durability. Fire Emblem Fates was another one where every single weapon in the game didn't have any durability, but like there were massive pros and cons. So like your iron weapons would just be standard, low attack, not really too many drawbacks. And then if you had a steel weapon, it had like an extra weight, so like it was harder to double with. Brave swords would lower your stats. Brave weapons would lower your stats after each use, so it's like you don't really want to go in and spam that. So it's an interesting parallel to that with the Fire Emblem, how it handles weapons to see is it good for the game? Is it good for the series? Breath of the Wild was one big experiment. So now that they have that and they've spent 5 years on its sequel, where do you think they're going to go with that? Do you think they're going to keep weapon durability in? Do you think there might be like a halfway point where they, you can repair weapons before they break?
Yeah, it's a good question. I imagine hmm I imagine they'll keep it just because it kind of fits. If it would be weird for it to be a departure completely. But maybe it just doesn't fit if it's like a more traditional 6 dungeon. If it is that, I don't know. Here's what I would want. I would want something in the game that maybe allowed you to reinforce. Like,
Yeah.
here's what they could do. They could add to the mechanics. So, like, keep the mechanics, but in the second game, you can go ahead and introduce, hey, would you like to reinforce this gear? Where, like, if you synthesize a certain kind of item or something that you pick up, it'll last a little longer. Maybe it'll boost the attack. And it's like, instead of it being like a boon like we used to get with like meals, not that meals won't be available, but what if they're not, right? But the idea is like, you boosting that weapon and it's staying like that until it breaks. But now that weapon can last you a little longer. Whereas, so you can still have that same mechanic from the original game, but instead now it's like, okay, cool. I can choose to make it like one of two things. I can make it more durable, or I can make it stronger, or maybe, something like, maybe add like an elemental effect or something like that, right? So I don't know. That could be something fun.
Like that. I think building upon the mechanic instead of scrapping it completely would be the better option. Two things that I would like to see them do, one or the other, or even both.
Hmm.
One, I would like them to have a more concrete visual indicator, like an actual numerical value to a weapon's durability, because it's in the
Oh,
coding. Like you can
yeah.
look
You
it up.
just can't
Like
see it. Yeah.
right, like the Royal Sword has, I don't know, like 55 durability or something. I don't know if that's the number. I'm just saying, like, there is an exact number coded into the game for it. So, like, maybe even like a weapon health bar underneath it, just so you can see, oh, I've barely touched this weapon. I can use it because, I still have 85% of its durability based on the health bar under it. Just some type of visual indicator to know when it's, where you're at outside of just, oh, it's flashing red, it's about to break. I would love that. And the other thing that I would like is for them to go the Fire Emblem Three Houses route, where there is weapon durability, but once the weapon breaks, it doesn't leave your inventory. It's still there in your inventory as a broken weapon, and you can use a forge to repair it. So to offset the balancing issue, they could make it to where it's either relatively expensive, like costs a lot of rupees and materials to repair, and of course that would scale up with the type of weapon it is. So one, that would give money value, rupees value beyond just the basic stuff, because Breath of the Wild did a decent job of making rupees valuable, especially with the upgrades, but it's never a bad thing to have more use for the in-game currency, in my opinion. And a lot of JRPGs suffer from that, because once you get to the end game, you have all this money and nothing to spend it on most of the time. So that would be a cool way to balance that. And of course, by having it repairable, it's a way for you to be encouraged to use whatever weapons you like and try ones that you wouldn't normally touch. Like, I never used the light scale trident in Breath of the Wild because I didn't want to break it. Because even though you could repair it, it wasn't the same thing. It was like a replica. So like that, that's one of those things that just would have bothered me. I'm like, no, I'm never going to use this because I don't want it breaking. So something to build on and expand it to make it a little more flexible would be really nice. So yeah, I know we didn't really plan to talk about Breath of the Wild sequel here, but since we did get a little bit more info in the last direct, I thought it would be fun to just talk about a little bit. And so yeah, Breath of the Wild sequel is going to be super fun, and it's going to be the future of gaming and revolutionize the industry just like the first game did. Speaking of the future of gaming, there's other things related to that we have to prepare ourselves for, such as $70 video games. The Nintendo Switch has been pretty much free of that outside of like deluxe editions and those types of deals with collector's editions. But we do now have our first retail $70 game on the Nintendo Switch, and it's the Skyrim Anniversary Edition, I think it's called, like the 17th re-release remaster rebooted edition featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Yeah, they sneakily put it on the eShop for $70. Just for some context here, obviously Skyrim was already on the Switch since launch, and you can upgrade. I think it's $20 on the eShop to upgrade to the Anniversary Edition. But if you buy just the Anniversary Edition itself, it's listed at $69.99. So yeah, $70.
I believe it's actually $10 upgrade, because I think
Is
it's
it a $10?
because it's 69, or it's 59.99 for the base product, I believe.
Let me double check that, because I could have
Yeah.
sworn I read somewhere that it would be $20. Let's see. Oh, and get this. So just to kind of add on to that,
Yeah.
the Skyrim Anniversary Edition is a digital only title. So not only is it $70, but you can't even get it cheaper at retail because it doesn't exist at retail.
Mm.
So just to add on to this pile, apparently there's some massive frame rate issues on it too. So whatever changes they made don't appear to have been bug tested or optimized very well, and the frame rate is even choppier than in the base game was on the Switch. So it's just a huge mess. Like I, man, Bethesda, what can you say?
I mean, this is like peak milking strat. Like, it's like it's very shameless too the way they do it. I don't know. You know, I think what would have been cooler. I mean, I'm trying to look at like pretty much stuff that they brought into it, right? Like fishing content and mechanics, Saints and Seducers Creation Club content, rare curios. It's very specific, like little additions to the game. But like, honestly, people would probably care more if, like, at least for the Switch version to enable, mod support or something. I know that that's like less likely on a Nintendo console because it's more locked down and things like that.
True. This isn't your uncle's Nintendo. I
No,
think they'd be more open to stuff like that. I mean, we've got Xbox games appearing on the Switch and
that's
cross-platform
true.
play.
Yeah, I don't know. It just for $70 and like, but no, I don't know. I mean, there's like small performance boosts for the next gen consoles that they get from being able to play these anniversary editions of Skyrim. But then when you look at Switch, it was already kind of incredible that this game actually launched with the Switch. If you think about it, I think it was like what 4 months after, no, 4 or 5 months after release, we got Skyrim,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was a launch year title.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact date. I think it launched in like August or something.
but it was really cool because like we got to see it as like a possibility from the get go. We're like, oh, we're gonna get Skyrim. That's awesome. And you know what? I've played it on Switch. It runs great. It's amazing. It's so fun.
Yeah, I heard it's a really good port. So I mean, it's a solid port, and it was a good glimpse into what the future of third-party ports could be on the Switch. And of course, gotta remember back in 2017, where our headspaces were at, the Wii U was an abject failure, and after its launch year, basically had almost no third-party support. So seeing immediately Skyrim being announced for Switch was a big deal because like there weren't any Elder Scrolls games on Wii U, and just in general, Western third parties specifically weren't supporting Nintendo's consoles. So it was great to see that on the Switch, and it was great to see them supporting it and making a competent port. But man, how far are we fallen from grace with this very sneaky tactic? I didn't even know it was digital only until today. I thought you could just get it anywhere and it was $70. No, there's no physical version of it. To get the anniversary edition, you either have to pay the $20 to upgrade your existing copy of Skyrim on the Switch, or pay it outright for $70. That's wow.
Big yikes.
Very big yikes. I hope this earns them $0 on the Switch. I hope they somehow lose money just for having it hosted on the eShop and never getting a sale.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm hurt because it just didn't have to be that way. I just don't see why they didn't. What they could have done was just lowered the price of the Legendary Edition to like 39 as like the base, and then just made this one 60, just because
Yeah.
you're not getting those next gen graphics and load time upgrades that the other consoles got for purchasing this version. So if it's just going to be some added content, then why not just, adjust the prices? And hey, yeah, you're not getting a physical. We're not reprinting these games, so then why the heck are we gonna? Oh, right, we're greedy. So I'm sure that's. I mean, that's what the behaviors look like.
Yeah, and there's some things too. Like I'm pretty sure there's new texture work and new lighting stuff. Like it's not going to have like ray tracing or anything on Switch, but they did improve some certain aspects of it. But it's not optimized well. There's tons of footage of people online posting video clips where it's chugging at like 15 frames a second. When even you yourself mentioned the original port on Switch actually ran really well. It was a solid port, and they've kind of ruined that with this. They've ruined its legacy with this
Mm.
anniversary edition, just with the way they're doing it. But hey, maybe this is the all digital future that we seem to be heading towards. Hopefully, consumers vote with their wallet here and say, "Nah, this isn't how we do things."
Would you pay 70 for Tears of the Kingdom if it released like that?
For Tears of the Kingdom, yes, I would.
Without it being on the next gen? Like what if they
Yes.
decided to, in preparation of the Switch 2 or whatever it's called, would you? Yeah, you said yes, you'd be cool with that.
Oh, no, no, no. I didn't say I'd be cool with that.
Oh,
I
oh.
said I would pay it. There's a big difference.
Okay, okay.
Come on, bro. Let's think about it. Like Tears of the Kingdom's going to be probably game of the year. It's going to be a 97, 98 on Metacritic, 10 out of 10 type of game, and it's going to give you 100 plus hours. So for me, yeah, that's going to be worth $70. But if all games on the Switch are $70, I'm going to be a lot more selective with what I buy at launch and when I buy certain games, like waiting for sales. Like I wouldn't be regularly buying games at launch if they decide to make them 70 because how games used to sell. So I couldn't see myself doing that on a regular basis. It'd have to be something I really want to play, and with my backlog as backed up as it is, I'm not hurting for stuff to play. So there'd be very few games that I would actually pay that up front.
It's fair. I mean, I know it's the future and it'll be that way for some games, kind of leading into that, but um I feel like as long as games become better at launch, I will feel more comfortable paying 70. Games like Nintendo usually are. You don't really have to worry about it being kind of like,
Right.
botched or half-assed or anything like that. So
Buggy and unplayable
yeah,
Cyberpunk.
yeah. Hey, that recently got a patch again, but I feel like right now it's like at its best, which is really surprising. I mean, I know it took a year and a half, right? Oh no, it's like
Man,
almost 2 years since
yeah,
release.
it's been a minute, bro. Like it went from like a buggy 5 out of 10 to a solid 7 out of 10 with all the all the patches and stuff. It's a playable game now, but I don't know. I was never really interested in Cyberpunk, but I'm happy for the people that now finally get to pay for the game that they envisioned playing. It's very similar to the No Man's Sky situation. I mean, the game that you can play now is so different than the one that launched in like 2015 or 16, whenever No Man's Sky came out. Like they've really kept their promise to improve the game, and it's a genuinely good game now. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case for Cyberpunk because there were so many people that were excited for it, and I'm glad it's getting better.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know. We'll see what happens with VR and upgrading to VR2. And obviously VR2 for PlayStation not having its backwards compatibility, kind of setting, putting a bad taste in people's
Huge,
mouths.
huge L.
Huge. I mean, yes, and I don't know, man. I've really looked into it. I agree. I agree as long as the developers for the original versions of those games, like maybe do something about, going, hey, this is what you get for playing the VR2 version. You know what I mean? Or like they're very clear and transparent about those things. Um,
They're not gonna, man. It's just to make sure that you buy the updated versions.
it's going to depend on the developer, I think. You know what I mean? Because with Sony, they've already stated like our hardware is a lot different. We're aiming to do these types of things. We're not trying to, transferring all of those mechanics over with the PS3 Move controllers wouldn't work. We wouldn't be able to take full advantage of this product that costs as much as your console. Now, again, it's going to be up to the discretion like we've had this current gen with free upgrades or $10 upgrades or none at all, depending on what
And
the
that's the thing,
the
though. You have to
developers and
rely on that developer to make a new version for this console,
right,
which is going to take resources. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. And of
yeah,
course, they're not just going to hand it to you for free. Most of the
for
time,
free,
there
yeah,
could be an upgrade fee that they give you a discount or something, but like there's going to be games that won't get that treatment. There's going to be smaller indie type games that people love on PSVR 1 that just won't be able to use them. Like they're just going to be stuck with the old one, and it's just like it's a shame, especially in today where we're at, where we're kind of at the point of diminishing returns from one console to the next in terms of like the PS4 or the PS5, where it's all similar, like infrastructure, not infrastructure. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's the console itself has a very similar structure with just way more power. So there's no reason you can't make these backwards compatible and just make them run a little better on the newer hardware, like kind of like the PS4 Pro did for PS4 titles, and even the PlayStation 5 did for games that work backwards compatible with PS4. It just feels like a money grubbing move, honestly.
Yeah, it does. I agree with you. It's anti-consumer, at least at the face, the face of it.
Like I can understand not making like new PSVR 2 games compatible with the old headset, but why is the PSVR 2 headset not compatible with old PSVR games? Like that doesn't make sense to me. That's the part that kind of gets me, and it's just I don't know. I've been very slow to get into the VR space just because of the massive investment required to do so, and the lack of like truly high quality games and experiences that you can get in it. So like this definitely kind of turns me away even further. Like I'll just wait until something better comes around.
That's where we're at with VR, though. You have your enthusiasts that are, devoted, and they enjoy it, and you have people who pick it up and enjoy a few gimmick kind of games and then maybe put it down. Um, but I think the most successful approach has been the Quest 2, really kicking things off for the VR hype. If anything, Sony should be thanking Meta for that. Um,
Yep. It's doing what we did for motion
yeah,
controls. I do agree with that. So I mean it's good. It's normalizing it. It's bringing it to the mainstream in a way that you didn't really see before. Like you said, it was mostly just technology enthusiasts that were getting into it. But like with the Oculus, you're seeing, you know, moms and pops getting into it just to try
right.
things like Beat Saber. Beat Saber is a lot of fun. That's one game that I really liked when I played some VR games. And Super Hot. Super Hot's another really fun game. It's where you have to like dodge bullets, and the bullets only move when you're moving. So you have to like physically move your body out of the way of them. But like if you need to stop and think, you can because they only move when you do. So like it's a really cool game. You can play it outside of VR, but it definitely shines in VR.
Was it designed for VR first and then ported to consoles?
I believe so. Yeah, I played it a couple years ago on the HTC Vive. If you if you remember that.
The Vive is still around, right? The Vive is alive.
I, oh God, I don't know. I honestly haven't heard anything from them. I know they made a second headset,
That's fascinating.
but
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't heard anything since then.
well,
So who really knows what the future of gaming is? Is it $70 video games at retail? Is it digital only future? Is it VR? Or is it streaming? Well, we know for sure that it's not that one because Google Stadia has announced that it is shutting down. I believe they said it was sunsetting in September and it'll be completely unusable by January. The announcement came as a mild surprise to most people. Everybody kind of knew it wasn't long for this world, but it apparently was a huge surprise to a lot of developers for Google Stadia. There were many developers and publishers saying on Twitter and on the social media sphere that basically like they didn't even know about this until the moment it was announced, and they were mid development of their game for Stadia when they found out. So it's just like wow.
what a low blow move, for a company just to make an announcement like that without any kind of, precursor. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the people who worked for Stadia knew that things weren't, going too well.
I'm sure they felt a bit of uncertainty. Like they kind of had to have a feeling that, hey, this doesn't really seem to be going great. Like, who knows where we'll be 3 months from now? But like to still get the actual official announcement to completely blindside you while you're still making games for it, that's wild to me. But I just want to say, I'm gonna put my confession cap on. I did buy a Stadia Pro bundle when it came out, mainly because it came with a Chromecast, a 4K Chromecast. So I was like, cool, I need a new Chromecast anyway. And it comes with a neat controller. Even if I don't like Stadia, I still have a neat controller I can pair to my computer and play with there. Turns out it's not Bluetooth. It's only Wi-Fi, connects to the server directly. So it's now collecting dust because I can't use it with anything.
It is a nice controller, though. I agree with you. They also gave those away for free eventually. I don't know if you
Yeah.
knew that either, but it was the founders editions
Yep.
that they couldn't sell.
That's what I had. I had the Founders Edition with the bluish one that was only available through that kit.
Ah, that's cool.
There was a couple reasons I did it. One, like I said, I needed a new Google Chromecast for my other TV. Two, I wanted to try out the controller. And three, I wanted to see the service. I wanted to see how well it worked. I was curious. So I got the Pro for the 3 months that came with it. I didn't renew after that, but just wanted to kind of see if it would work, if it would be like a viable alternative or a good complement to my Nintendo consoles to see like, hey, could this be my third party machine? Funny, the one game that I did play on it was actually Destiny
Yes.
2, because that was one of the games you got for the Pro. And that's where I noticed the biggest like shortcomings of it. The latency for a first person shooter game, like it was playable, but it didn't feel great. And that was kind of my experience with it. When it ran well, it ran okay. It was never an optimal experience. And then when it didn't run well, it was just unplayable, with the screen tearing and all sorts of other issues there. It was an interesting concept that I don't even want to say it was ahead of its time. It's just not a true replacement for a standard video game console. And their whole business model was just awful. It's like, so you're telling me you want me to spend $60 to not own any version of this game, and once the servers go down, that $60 just goes with you. And that's what you're seeing now. If you spent money to buy a Stadia game, well, you don't own that game. You can't play that game once the servers go down, and that was the biggest issue with it. If they had brought it out as more of like a Game Pass type thing where every game on it was just available as a subscription service, I think one, it would have been more successful, and two, it would have made more sense to most consumers where it's like, hey, I could play all these games for $20 a month or something, where it is a true like Netflix for video games. You don't need hardware, you don't need, you know, have to do all this stuff, all these accessories. You just have a Chromecast, a controller, $20 a month, and you can play all the games. But I don't know, man. What are your thoughts?
It's completely disagreeable to me. The whole situation. Um, you're right. I mean, I picked up Destiny 2, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, where I think I was, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, PS5 actually had like an outage. So I switched over to my Stadia. And even though I wasn't paying for Pro, I'm not sure if you know this, but Destiny 2 is also free to play now.
Oh, nice.
So regardless if you picked it up and claimed it and all that, when you had Pro, you have access to it now. So something that is cool about Stadia, or I guess was cool about Stadia, is being able to hook up your controller real quick, right, on your cast capable, Chromecast capable device, which Google TV, that works with it, or the 4K that it comes bundled with, and you can play Destiny 2 without a subscription. So I remember during my outage, I got to play with my friends because I had, a Google Stadia account. And I thought that's when there was like a bit of value that I saw too, where I was like, oh, neat, I'm not even paying right now. And I can play with my friends through this game. Like, that was cool. And, talking about performance, maybe not the greatest for something that you need it to be, right? I mean, it probably improved from when you played it. There was moments where things would dip, and it was probably due to some of my bandwidth. I'm far away from my router, but I still have the Google Mesh network here in my home. Either way, I know that the service just left a lot to be desired, and I learned also today that apparently Hideo Kojima had a single player game that he was going to create with Google Stadia, and it was supposed to be a Death Stranding. I wouldn't say spin-off game, but it was supposed to be a Strand-like title that was supposed to.
I was just about to say, were we actually going to get the world's second Strand type game?
Google wasn't really interested. I guess the game was reportedly set to be exclusively single player, which would be different from how Death Stranding's got the multiplayer elements with like other characters that pop in and stuff. Like I don't know if you know much about Death Stranding, but you can have other characters like other players can like leave an obstacle for another character or build a bridge for another character or another player. I keep saying characters, but
Yeah.
I don't know. According to the report I was reading earlier, I guess Stadia doubted the viability for single player games moving forward and shelved the project after seeing early mock-ups in the 2020 release of the game. So
Wow.
yeah, that was something that could have been really great for Stadia if they had agreed to it earlier on, but they didn't think single player games, I guess were viable to them, which is, I don't know. I kind of get it. Another loss is what about what if you played Cyberpunk, for instance, on Stadia and you have hundreds of hours or something like that, or any other game that could, you know, it doesn't matter how many hours, right? The time you spent, you're not going to be able to get those saves down, right? So hopefully they can come up
Nope.
with a way to convert at least to PC if there's an equivalent for people to have them. Like, hey, sorry, here's the PC equivalent. Here's a transfer tool where it can get transferred to PC. You have that data if you ever play it on PC. Because you were running all their stuff on PCs. So
Exactly.
if you think about it, then yeah, why not just hold on? I just thought about it. Yeah, okay. What? Please do that. Why? They have it on their servers. The least they can do, on top of giving us all our money back, is give us our time, right?
Oh yeah, you're not getting your money back.
What do you mean?
Like Stadia users, they're not going to get refunds for the services they paid.
Oh, I'm talking about the games they purchased, which they are.
Oh, they're going to refund the games?
Yeah, they're taking a huge loss in January, mid-January. Everybody who purchased, not like the monthly payments,
Oh,
obviously, like if you paid the monthly payments, but like let's say you bought Cyberpunk,
I
$60.
didn't
Yeah,
know
they're
that.
taking
Okay, good guy, Google.
yeah, they're taking the approach of, all right, we messed up. You paid for our service. You won't get that back. But if you paid for a game, an expansion, anything that cost you anything, you get your dough back for that. So
Well, that's good. At least they're not leaving you high and dry. So I do feel a little better about that. So basically, every customer just was a beta tester for the most part.
as is with all Google things.
Yeah, no kidding. They can't keep a project up more than 3 years, it seems like. But that's good news to hear. I didn't know about the refund thing, so that's super cool.
Mhm.
And like you said, it would be nice if there is a way to transfer your data. Like you said, they're running on PCs anyway, so there's no reason. Maybe it's saved through Google Play Games or something, or it's saved to your Google Drive or something, and you can get your file. I mean, it's PC. I'm sure somebody has found a way to do this, even if Google's not offering it themselves. So it wouldn't surprise me if people are already on that, a way to transfer your saves to like a physical PC copy of the game. Yeah, it didn't even last 3 years. It launched in November 2019.
Oh, yeah, I was excited about it. I wish there was another way I could use that controller. Like you said, it's Wi-Fi only, and it's like such a waste of a controller.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I kind of saw this coming just with their business models. Like, no one's going to want to pay $60 for a game they can't truly own and can't even say when they'll not be able to play said game anymore, even if it wasn't an online game. So, yeah, that's definitely not the future of gaming. And what will be the future of gaming, though? We're talking a lot of future stuff here. We got to get a gif of Squidward going future.
Future.
So there's a rumor going through the grapevine that the future of PlayStation could be a Horizon Zero Dawn remake or remaster. The rumors basically states that there's one in development right now, and I've got some things to say, but I want to hear your thoughts and your reaction to that information. How would you feel about a Horizon Zero Dawn remake in 2023?
We may as well just remake Fall Guys then,
Fall Guys Remastered Deluxe Edition Part 1.
and it's like $1.
Yeah, because Fall Guys is another one of those that went free to play. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, who knows how that is? But it just seems like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, are you really going to make a $70 remake of a game that just came out 5 years ago? And is still fully playable on the console that you're intending to make this re-release
It
on.
even received just like the I think wait, didn't the original?
Yeah, it got patched, right? It
Yeah,
didn't get a
it got
PS5 patch.
yeah, but okay, that's right. All right. So this is interesting. Let's think about this for a moment, okay? Last of Us Part 2 came out on PS4, right? But then I don't think it had a PS5 version, but there is a
Yeah,
PS5 patch, right?
I'm pretty sure Last of Us Part 2 came out on PS5 as well.
Mm-mm.
Let me double check that because I'm actually not sure. When did that even come out? Was that 2 years ago?
Mhm.
2020?
Mhm.
Yeah, June 9th, 2020. Okay, so no, I don't think it was on the PlayStation 5, but
Right.
it did get I know it did get a patch for it though.
So it did get a patch, but you have to think about it like this, right? We we have a patch for that game, and we have a patch for Zero Dawn, but those patches just bring things up to speed to use some of the hardware that's available. But those aren't PS5 games. We're in this weird gray area because of, you know,
Like, what is a PS5 game at its core,
what
right?
is a PS5 game if it wasn't originally on PS5? Like, is it really just isn't it just a PS4 game with a patch? Like, is that what they would have just sold us anyway? Like, if there was a PS4, PS5 version, it would just be that patch. Is that patch what makes a PS5, version of the game that was on a previous generation? So I don't know. I feel like all of that data there, just at a glance, kind of makes you think like, why are we spending resources? We, as in this case, Guerrilla Games, unless they have like a third party that's handling it or something like that, but I doubt it. Or like, what are they gonna gain out of that other than, I imagine they want to bring more people on board, or it's hard to say, man. I mean, what's going to come next? Is it Last of Us Part 2, the PS5 version? Are they going to remaster that so that it's like also a PS5 title? Like, either give the game a free patch and leave it alone, or come out with the dual versions of the game. Like God of War Ragnarok's going to come out soon, and that's going to have a PS4/PS5 release. So keep it like that, or do the free patches. That's my thing.
It just seems weird to do both, and it's one of those situations where like we're at a point in game consoles where it's going to be very hard to find a game that runs on the latest console that could not, through some type of changes or optimizations, run on the previous gen console. And I think that's something that the Nintendo Switch is kind of proving true. I mean, if we could get games like Doom 2017 and Doom Eternal running on the Switch, albeit at lower frame rates, resolutions, and all that, but the game itself is at its core, it's the same game running on Switch. I just don't think we're going to have a situation where this game could not exist on PS4, like with the Last of Us Part 1 remake. Like it does exist on PS4. It's a the original on PS3 was remastered for PS4 and that existed on the PS4 and you can still play that on the PS5 with the enhancements. Like it, we really don't need a remaster of a game that came out less than
Yeah.
a decade ago. Like it's so bizarre to me that this is the direction they're taking instead of going for, I don't know, like a spin-off. I mean, what if there was like a Last of Us like fully online multiplayer game? Like make it their in-house Call of Duty or make it their Gears of War or their Halo or just do something different with the franchise that, doesn't cannibalize the original game cuz like you said, there's nothing wrong with running Horizon Zero Dawn on the PS5 with the patch making it run at 60 frames a second. So I mean it's a better experience, smoother experience, sure, but like what can a remake or a remaster honestly bring to the table this early into its lifespan that is worth making an entire game over? Because you have to have a whole development team, a whole budget for it. Like it just seems unnecessary. That'd be like if Nintendo was like, "Hey, we're gonna remaster Super Mario Odyssey for the new Nintendo Switch Pro." Just put a patch on it. It's still the same game. Like you don't need to remake this entirely.
I like what you said about the online a moment ago with, maybe Last of Us having like its old PS3 counterpart multiplayer mode or something, with the factions and the Fireflies and and things like that. Like it can be fun.
Yeah, like Revelations. Remember when Mercenaries, Resident Evil
Oh, that's
Mercenaries,
right. Yeah, that had one. I mean,
something like that. Like its own identity, its own separate game that's just focused on multiplayer. Like do something different.
something else they could do too. At least going back to Guerrilla Games with Horizon is maybe making like a Killzone multiplayer kind of experience too. Because I mean, the last Killzone game we got was on the PS4's launch. We haven't heard about anything Killzone related, and they're the ones that are behind it. And I feel like either. And here's another thing. So let's talk about some pros because I know there are pros to remakes and things like that. Like I do like having like a schedule where maybe they bring a game. Doesn't need to be from the previous generation. I feel like if it's from PS3 and maybe before, cool, bring it back and let's get a new coat of paint, some new controls and things like that. But here we have stuff from the previous gen that we can still enjoy and play and have full support for. So that's why it feels less of a intriguing offer. But I do like, in more of like a positive light, the idea of developers taking a bit of like maybe a bit of a break, or being able to just work on this stuff, pump it out, get more people that missed out on that previous gen. What if because that's kind of how things work, right? You've got like these 5 to 7, and it's going to be longer age gaps, right, for games where if people have PS5s, they might not care to play PS4 games. Like we were talking about earlier, we're going into an all digital future eventually. Consoles aren't going to even have discs, right? So the only way to play those older games are going to be maybe not having digital copies of them, but a drop of like a remake or something, and then we get like a big reveal. I think that's okay as long as we're getting more than just what we already have access to.
And that's kind of the problem, isn't it? You're really not getting a significantly different experience. I mean, objectively, yeah, you're gonna get a better experience. I mean, you better. It's running on more powerful hardware. It's. I would expect the remake or remaster to look and feel better than the original. It's like when every year the iPhone comes out, the new iPhone, and they always have the same tagline, and I think it's super funny: the most powerful iPhone ever. Well, yeah, I would hope so. I hope you wouldn't go back and make a weaker one. Like, what are we doing here? So, I mean, yeah, you're getting a better experience, but it's like, is it significantly better to the point where it deserves its own release? Like, just think about like Nintendo, all of the franchises that they have. They have such a diverse portfolio of games that they can make, and even since the Switch has launched in 2017, it feels like every other month there's a big game from a different Nintendo franchise launching, and that's just kind of how they've done things. But like with PlayStation, even if you don't have nearly as many franchises, you could still branch out and do more to space out the releases and just do something different. And I know when this news came out, there's a lot of posts online about like, hey, how come you guys don't remake this game? Like Ape Escape, we could remake that. Or you mentioned Killzone. What's going on with that franchise? Like, there's other franchises you could do a release or a game for instead of just redoing the same game over and over
And
again.
you just came out with the sequel to the game. Like it just seems so
Right.
Last of Us since it's like the most related. I don't know. It just
It really does.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
It just feels kind of gross, right? Like it's just, hey, this is an easy
Yeah.
way for us to make a lot of money. So let's take the easy way instead of trying to do something new and innovative. Like I still feel that the PS5 has not justified its own existence yet. It's a more powerful PS4 at this point, and you can't convince me otherwise. Like there's no, oh, you can only experience this with the power of the PS5 game yet. Like it just doesn't exist. They've either dual released it, like they're about to do God of War, or it's just remasters of games that already existed and already could play better themselves on the console.
I agree, but then you also have like the cyberpunk kind of dilemma. I know that's a bit more of like an exclusive, or not exclusive. That's more of a situational thing.
because you obviously have it running better on next gen. Like they shouldn't have let it even release on the previous gen. So that's like almost a situation where they were better off just supporting next gen and staying on that, but they decided to really bite the bullet on that. So I don't know. I know there's some games that are very great. Like I have mentioned Astrobot is awesome. Could that be on the PS4? Probably. I don't know. But
See, I would argue against that notion, though, that, the last gen console version is why Cyberpunk had so many issues, because I think the problems were much bigger than that.
let me clarify then, because that's not what I
Okay.
meant. I meant and maybe you wouldn't be the only one that maybe thought that from what I said. So let me just reiterate by saying I think it held them back by keeping it supported on those older consoles. It could have been way better at launch, maybe if they had dropped that support, because they had a deadline to meet that they pushed, and they still released an unfinished product. But it did run at least to a good speed. It was like a 50
Yeah.
to 60 FPS, but then you had what, 15 to 20 on previous console. Just to clarify that.
I get what you're saying now. Okay. I got you. If they weren't
Yeah.
focusing on making, parity between consoles, that they could have made a better experience by focusing on it. And that's kind of like a chicken and egg situation too. Like that's still where
Yeah.
we're at 2 years after the launch of the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Is if you focus on just the Xbox Series X version, is it really going to sell consoles, or are people just going to not get it because they don't see a reason to upgrade over, you know, slightly better visuals and things like that? Or, is running on both of it, is it cannibalizing its own sales because it's still available on the old platforms? And I think that's a problem that Sony especially is having right now. Like, how many times have they gone back on saying something was a PS5 exclusive and said, "Oh, don't worry, we're still making a PS4 version of the game," just because they don't want to lose out on those potential sales where their install base is much higher. And of course, the PS5 is still pretty hard to find, so not everybody that wants a PS5 can play that game because they don't have it, because just the availability isn't there.
I think this is the console generation where you really don't need to own both of the new consoles. Like, I mean, I know there's Switch too, and that's a different.
Right. That's a third prong. Yeah.
It's like Nintendo is kind of like in its own. It competes with itself. I've always seen Nintendo as that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this generation, yeah, if you have one of the new ones, great. But it's like you said, with it being like an upgraded PS5 or a PS4 rather, where you have the Xbox and it's like a more powerful Xbox One X, honestly. And it doesn't really have exclusives until I believe this year it has its first few exclusives that only run on the S and X, if I'm correct.
They're few and far between those, the point. And it's like there's so much bleed over between generations
Right.
right now. Like, we still don't know what a true next gen experience looks like.
We don't. This is the first time we've ever been through that. And this is the first time we've spent this much money on a console since 2005.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there, and especially with PlayStation raising the price of the PS5 and places not named the United States.
Oh, ouch. Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. Going back on track here, I know that, last time you were talking about Splatoon 3 and, how things were with, I know you had the beta try, you were trying it out and seeing what it was like. And now that you've got the game in your hands and you've been able to see what's up, I know you've been into it, right? Tell me about it.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a lot of fun playing it since it came out. I'm gonna say right off the bat, the story mode is the best it's ever been in a Splatoon. They've completely revamped it. They incorporated a lot of elements from Octo expansion. So, like, the whole you have to pay to get in. Like, each level has its own like entry fee, and you earn more currency based on which weapon you pick. Like, if you pick a harder weapon, you can earn more and challenge yourself to approach a level differently and add some replay value and things like that.
Cool.
One thing I really enjoyed about the story mode this time around is that all of the hidden scrolls and the Sardinium, which is another like collectible you could find in the other games. They're all in the hub world. So there's a reason to explore the hub world more thoroughly than there ever has been. And because they're contained to just the hub world, when you go into the levels, you can focus on just doing whatever the main challenge of that level is without having to explore every nook and cranny to make sure you didn't miss out on any secrets. So I think that's a cool approach to it. Ember and I have both beaten the final boss now, and it was such a cool, well-designed fight. It was really, really good. It's like I said, they built on Octo expansion in every way imaginable. Super great. If I had one complaint, it's that there really isn't a whole lot you get from 100%ing the story mode. Whereas in Splatoon 2, there was a hero replica of each of the 8 main weapon types. So like there was the hero splatter shot, the hero dualies, the hero charger, and it had a really cool design that was different to the actual weapon it was based on. Still had the same stats, the same kit, the same loadout and everything. Nothing changed there, but it had a different design from the weapon it was based on. So you could earn every single one of those hero replicas by going through every stage in Splatoon 2 with that specific weapon. And that was a cool thing that you could do. Whereas in this one, as far as I'm aware, you can only get the hero shot replica, which is based on just the splatter shot. So I hope that's something they change in updates. They do have a lot of content updates planned, and it's the best-selling Splatoon game by far. So I have no doubts that they're going to really support this game hard post-launch. On that story, the Salmon Run has been awesome. The changes that they made, they seemed like minor things, like the extra wave boss that can sometimes appear is super cool. It really feels like a big boss fight. The ability to throw eggs is huge. It does take some ink when you do it, so you can't just just chuck eggs everywhere. So there is a little bit of risk reward there, but it makes teamwork so much more viable, and it's a much better experience than Splatoon 2 in every way.
What do the eggs do?
So Salmon Run is kind of like the zombies mode or the survival mode. You go through 3 waves, and the objective in each wave is to defeat boss salmonids. And when you defeat a boss salmonid, they drop these power eggs, and you're supposed to pick up the eggs and take them to the basket before the wave ends. So I think each wave is 2 minutes or 3. I think they're 3 minutes each wave, and there's 3 of them total. So basically, your goal in each wave, in order to progress to the next wave, you have to put the amount of power eggs in the basket that's required for that. So, and it depends on your rank. Obviously, higher ranks, you need more eggs, but like early on, let's say wave 1, you have to get 6 eggs. Wave 2, you have to get 8 eggs. Wave 3, you have to get 10 eggs. And they're separate. What you earn in wave 1 doesn't contribute to wave 2. It's a separate each time. And however many eggs you get by the end of it is how much your progress bar goes up, which determines like your rewards and stuff. It was one of the best ways to earn money in Splatoon 2, which is great that it's still that way in Splatoon 3. It's a lot faster than playing multiplayer to earn weapons, or not weapons, but earn money and currency.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is the definitive Splatoon in almost every way. I've played quite a bit of multiplayer as well, and it needs some patches. There's certain things that need to be fixed and updated, but it's still standard Splatoon multiplayer. So that's, if you like Splatoon multiplayer in 1 and 2, you're gonna love it in 3.
I cut you off a little bit earlier when I asked my question, but you said the lobbies were improved. You said,
yeah, I think I mentioned this last time when I was talking about the beta, but like you can actually join up with your friends before going into a public matchmaking lobby, which it sounds like a very basic feature, and let's be honest, it is, but it isn't something that you could do in Splatoon 1 and 2. In Splatoon 2, you could join a friend while they were playing, but you couldn't like link up in a party before going in, and when you join their lobby, there's no guarantee that you'd be on the same team as them, despite them being in your friend and you joining your friend's lobby. You could end up on opposite teams in Turf War. This is the casual mode.
okay.
But now for Turf War, you can actually link up, get everybody in your party together, and then jump into matchmaking. And it's a smoother experience because while you're waiting for the matches to happen, you're in like inside the tower where you can do like the target practice and test out your weapons range and hit the dummies and stuff. So you can actually do stuff while you're waiting for it.
Looking forward to it. I might wait until an expansion releases for it, or I don't know. I definitely want to get through the second game. There's a couple second games I'm trying to get to. Xenoblade 2 being another one. But yeah, I think they both hold their value then. Would you say people should just sell their Splatoon 2 copies if they've already played them all the way through and they've gotten what they want out of it and just like upgrade, would you say, to Splatoon 3? Or would you say that they should keep both for their own reasons? What do you determine?
It's a good question. I would say that you're probably okay selling your copy of Splatoon 2 unless you really like Octo Expansion or the single player modes. But outside of that, I mean, when it comes to Salmon Run and multiplayer, there's really not a lot of reason to go back to 2. So it's really, if you're the type of person that likes the campaign and likes the single player, then yeah, you might want to hold on to it. But otherwise, you're good to go.
That's good to know. I'm asking because, that's just how it works with like even, more of like the Battlefield / Call of Duty scene, which I know this is like Nintendo's way to get into the FPS circle, of games. So I imagine, every year those games, the meta for those games always just moves on to the next title regardless. So kind of just made me think like, oh, maybe for Splatoon 2, most of the player base will move on to the third one and kind of move forward with like multiplayer too. But I agree with what you were saying with the single player aspects where you can only get those pieces from Splatoon 2. So maybe play those, and once you're done, don't worry about the multiplayer in Splatoon 2 and just go into Splatoon 3, since you do have access to all the gear from previous games, which is the first for the series, as we've touched on before.
Yeah, it really is the definitive Splatoon experience, which is super cool. And just knowing that it's going to get better with content updates just has me excited for what's to come.
And that about wraps up our time for today. Thank you for those who tuned in, and thank you for chatting with me, Zero. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to like or dislike and even share with us what games you were playing or are looking forward to releasing before year's end, and in the comments below. Take care, everyone. Stay dandy and happy gaming.